The Vulgar's mistake. The backwater system's ignorance of the species they threatened was their first mistake. The Vulgar planned to enslave the primitive humans and claim Earth's resources for themselves. But they would soon discover that provoking humanity's wrath was the greatest mistake the galaxy had ever seen. For when you threaten humanity's homeworld, no superweapon or army can save you. The Vulgar had awoken a fury beyond their wildest imaginations. Now, humanity would make sure they paid the ultimate price. Ramos crouched behind the pipes, heart pounding. The gloom of the Vulgar camp pressed in, the air thick with the scent of oil and arrogance. He finished strapping on the stolen armor, the disguise rough but necessary. The hacked comm buzzed with alien tongues relaying news. The Vulgar warlord would soon inspect. Ramos focused on each alien click and growl, fueling his determination. Now came the moment. He slipped through the camp, the Vulgar's overconfidence their downfall. They had not reckoned with the relentlessness of the human spirit against tyranny. Shadow by shadow, Ramos gathered intel, pure gold. At the camp's heart loomed the superweapon, twisted metal humming with ominous power. Ramos meant to silence its terrible heartbeat. Through whispered transmissions, the intelligence sped to Earth to battle-weary Dr. Carlin. Her eyes widened at the weapon's energy flaw. Ramos had risked all to expose this weakness, but as victory neared, the plan crumbled. A soldier halted Ramos, eyes red with suspicion. The stolen armor was too slim, betraying Ramos's human form amid the giants. Alarms shrieked as his heart sank. Bound to the table, Ramos faced the warlord's icy glare. G-Mac, draped in ancient garb, circled like a predator. His growly voice demanded answers Ramos would never give. "You humans intrigue me," G-Mac mused, eyes glinting with disgust and dark respect. "But you are foolish. Your spirit will break as your planet will." The super weapon rumbled alive, targeting Earth to crush one defiant human's will. But Dr. Carlin refused to spare his grip. As the weapon charged, she feverishly readied the unfinished contingency plan, humanity's last gamble. For humans, surrender was not an option. Even chained, Ramos embodied that unrelenting human danger. Though Earth hung in the balance, Ramos and Carlin proved humans were not to be underestimated. The Vulgar would learn that lesson the hardest way possible. A frantic energy seized the lab as Carlin read the encrypted message. Ramos had found an opening. The weapon's energy flow contained a critical flaw. But she needed line of sight, and time was bleeding out fast. Carlin tore through the complex, issuing orders left and right. The plan in motion. "We've got a shot. Let's build a cloak, something to bend light and blind their targeting." The team exploded into motion, running simulations and scribbling calculations. Carlin pitched in, fingers flying as she hardwired the experimental prototype. Piece by piece, their desperate plan took shape. On the enemy ship, Ramos cracked the magnetic lock on his cell. He caught the other's eyes, nodding. It was time. They spilled into the hallway, a tide of reckless hope. The guards came at them hard, but Ramos and the others hit back harder, blows fueled by Earth, by home. Ramos felt bone give way under his fist. "Go, go, go," he yelled as they clawed through wave after wave of guards. Up ahead waited the transport, freedom beckoning. Sprinting into the hangar, alarm klaxons drowning their footfalls, they pried open the transport doors and scrambled inside. Ramos gummed the engines, his passengers shouting encouragement as the ship surged forward. On Earth, the order rang out, "Evacuate." Millions filed underground, clutching what hope remained. But some stayed above, faces lifted in defiance. "Will the angels come, Daddy?" A little girl asked, staring skyward. "Yes, sweetheart, angels in spacesuits." In orbit, the fleets braced for fire, resolve stealing from ensign to admiral. This was the hour they were made for. Back on the moon, Ramos weaved through chaos, making for the heart of the superweapon. Their battered ship, bruised but unbroken, flew at the towering behemoth arrayed against them. "Brace yourselves," Ramos called out as the weapon core grew huge in their sights. This was it, their one desperate chance. On Earth, the device came online, bending light and cloaking the planet in mirage. Bunkers sealed shut as the countdown wound down, hope and fear twisting together. The weapon charge, poised to unmake humanity with a keystroke. But on Earth and in orbit, people stood firm, united. However steep the odds, they would never go gentle. Their defiance was their strength, their identity. And with the lab's cloak rising around Earth, bending starlight, there just might be a chance. Sweat soaked Ramos as he peered through the grate, his heart pounding as the soldiers stalked below. One wrong move meant annihilation. His ragtag crew crowded beside him, holding their breath. "Remember, sabotage," Ramos hissed. "We're the wrench in their works." Resolve glinted in their eyes. They spilled from the duct like ghosts, soundless on the cold floor. The power core was their target. Disable it and chaos would erupt. Some peeled off, laying traps in the corridors. Others vanished into shadows, sowing discord with false signals. Even their breaths seemed too loud. Ramos led the rest towards the core, the weapon's dark heart. A hulking patrol approached. Ramos signaled, and his crew pounced, a blur of limbs and stifled grunts. The aliens lay bound in their own net, trapped prey. At the core, Ramos's fingers flew, extracting key parts, buying precious seconds for Earth. Light years away, Dr. Carlin watched the horizon redden. Her team prepped the disruption device, guts and theory made real. It rose into position as Ramos whispered the countdown. The weapon fires. At his signal, the device ignited and arched into space. In the core, alarms wailed as the weapon faltered. The team retreated through shrieking corridors. Then it came, a roar of unbridled fury as the super weapon fired. But Earth remained shrouded in a veil of light. The beams splintered against the illusion. On Earth, a shared gasped, incredulous relief. Defiance had won this round. In his moon base, Jimak snarled, raging at the humiliation. He would skin Ramos alive for this. But Ramos ran, the deck shaking, the weapon malfunctioning around him. Each desperate turn a small victory. But the war was just beginning. Their win was a flicker in the dark, proving the impossible was possible. For once, the galaxy had listened, backs stiffened by human tenacity. They ran. Jimak howled for blood, his war cry ringing metallic through the mothership halls. The elite warriors flooded in, clad in alien armor and burning for vengeance. Ramos clapped Jackson's shoulder, meeting his eyes with steely resolve. The humans huddled in the murky hangar gloom, grim smiles tracing their faces. Today, they would burn the nightmare down. The alien power core pulsed before them, enclosed in barriers and humming sickness. But humanity was no stranger to the monsters in the dark. Boots pounded the grated walkways, a war drum driving them on. Traps snapped to life, tendrils of plasma, crushing gravity wells. But cunning guided them through the snares, disarming each threat. The sentinels woke, weapons screaming. The humans danced between searing bolts, returning fire in defiant chorus. A piercing war cry reminded them this was for survival, not conquest. The command hub exploded with chaos as they tore through it. Wires ripped free, screens shattered under desperate fists. With every blow, they tore the beast's teeth out. Brow furrowed in focus, Dr. Carlin watched the data, encoded the deadly sequence to cripple the weapon. She unleashed it into the network like a thunderbolt to the enemy's heart. The mothership quivered, lights flickering out, consoles bursting. The proud core screeched in agony as the feedback loop took hold. The elite warriors wavered, their might unraveling. "Move out," Ramos commanded through the flashing chaos. As the weapon died, they pressed on, blowing through twisting tunnels as metal screamed and buckled around them. Their retreat was calculated, the promise to return etched in the ruins they left smoldering behind them. The humans dared to hope, not with naivety but defiance. The crumbling weapon, once their doom, now spelled the enemy's end. Back on Earth, the military prepared, knowing the war was just beginning. But today, Ramos and his crew had carved a path to tomorrow. Their light had burned through the void's dark grasp. The aftermath. The moon beneath them convulsed violently, its surface ruptured and heaved in a swirling nightmare of annihilation. Shockwaves of cataclysmic force reverberated through the vulgar stronghold, bringing the metal walls and machinery crashing down in thunderous destruction. Gemet's wails rose and fell, swallowed by the overwhelming din before being silenced forever in the rubble. Ramos and his crew could only watch through the cracked viewport, exhausted bodies pressed against the battered hull of their ship. "It's over. Gemet is finished," Ramos uttered hoarsely, breath clouding the glass. Just then, a victorious roar sliced through the airless dark. Earth's reinforcement fleet had arrived, bristling with weapons, seizing the moment. The sleek vessels plunged into the chaos, poised to turn the tide against the scattered vulgar armada. They made it. Martins cried in relief, clutching the console, eyes fixed on their salvation. In vivid silence, space became a stage for the raging orchestra of war. Fighters danced in swarms of red and green as the once mighty vulgar ships flailed in disarray, unable to rally a defense amidst the pandemonium. In the lead strike vessel, Commander Taylor gripped the controls, knuckles white. "Hit them hard. Push the enemy back," he bellowed to his squadron as they pressed the offensive. Stranded in the crumbling base, Ramos met his crew's eyes with staunch determination. Though their oxygen ticked down to nothing, they salvaged debris, seeking escape with inventive hands and survival instincts. Finding a downed vulgar transmitter, Ramos held the sparking device aloft. "It's our only chance," he said. They fused wires and metal like artists moved by necessity's muse. The sputter of the makeshift machine was sweet music, a message flung into the void, a plea to live. On Earth, Dr. Carlin alone heard its faint signal, like a heartbeat cutting through the noise. The crew was out there. She mobilized the rescue ships in urgent response. "Go get them now." The flotilla surged forth, evading lasers and missiles. Propelled by hope and purpose, they plunged into the melee to reclaim lost lives. "We're breaking through," came the lead pilot's cry as cruisers exploded around them. At the porthole, Ramos's gaunt face watched their salvation draw near. Each vulgar ship destroyed brought them closer to home. "Have faith," Ramos urged them. "They're coming." The rescue vessels emerged through the debris, extending their doors, bridges across the stars. "Grab hold," the voice crackled through the transmitter. "We've got you." One by one, in their bulky suits, the crew hurled themselves into grasping hands, flying on willpower alone. Dr. Carlin exhaled in overwhelming relief as the last officer boarded, their lives reclaimed from the abyss. The stronghold behind them shuddered once more before the core detonated furiously, becoming the vulgar's tomb. The human fleet soared away in blazing victory, shepherding the rescued home through stardust and vengeance. Gazing back at the fading chaos, Ramos smiled wearily. Earth called, the promise of home after trials untold. "Let's go home," he sighed at last. Rebuilding and diplomacy. In the dark silence of space aboard the crippled vulgar ship, Ramos worked with precision, his experienced hands transforming alien machinery to suit human needs, adapting, improvising, hallmarks of humanity's spirit. Steady, Ramos warned his second, Jackson, who spliced unfamiliar tech into weapons controls. Showers of sparks illuminated Jackson's face, etched with focus. They turned enemy strength against them. Poetic justice. Ramos patted a panel, feeling potential thrum beneath his fingertips. Around him, his team grafted human ingenuity into the alien vessel, creating a chimera fueled by mankind's defiance. Far below on Earth, in a fortified bunker, Dr. Carlin stood before blazing tactical displays. Her keen mind was already several moves ahead. With calm authority, she directed decisive strikes against vulgar strongholds. Officers relay her rapid orders, On screens, confirmation of mobilization flashed. The wounded Phoenix, Earth's forces rising to the call. Word of Ramos' daring spread like flames on worlds still under Vulgar occupation, kindling the fires of dissent. On Australis IV, a factory planet churning out Vulgar weapons, unrest simmered in shadowed maintenance tunnels. Zara, a human smuggler, whispered forbidden messages into crude comm systems, fanning the embers of rebellion. Her soft voice ignited soul-deep longing in the Anarus slaves toiling endlessly. Earth stands firm, and we stand with them. Her words cascaded through sectors, uniting yearning hearts as one. From lightless mines to infernal forges, long-oppressed peoples rose together, emboldened by humanity's call. The Vulgar's grip began to crack. Aboard the remade ship, the crew erupted in elation as engines thundered to life. A beast reborn with a human heart. Ramos grabbed the comm, pride booming in his voice. This is Ramos aboard the Vulgar flagship, now the spear of terror, bringing the fires of vengeance to their doorstep. In practiced choreography, Earth's forces punctured Vulgar strongholds with surgical strikes, each blow a crescendo under Dr. Carlin's orchestration. Watch those flanks. Commander Taylor barked from orbit. Full barrage. Lasers seared the blackness. Fighters slipped between blasts, and the spear plunged into the fray, an icon of the new era. Scattered without leadership, Vulgar forces crumbled before humanity's wrath. As word of victory traveled, stories of Ramos and Earth's cunning ignited hope in slaves' hearts. Aboard a grimy escape pod, an Anarus child watched a grainy video of Ramos addressing his crew. "If they can fight, so can we," he murmured in wonder. "Humans are amazing." The childlike words rippled, being to being, world to world. Frail no more, humanity blazed like a new star, illuminating paths to freedom. On the Spear's bridge, victory's glow lit Ramos's crew. Beyond the viewports, infinity beckoned. The chain reaction was unstoppable now. Revolts erupted, allegiances shifted, legends were born. Those who dared dream now dared fight, their collective strength reshaping the galaxy. The narrative was rewritten, not by one, but by the shared spirit of all who believed in the power of humanity's iron will. Forging the new alliance, the raw emotion in the massive auditorium thrummed through the very air. This ocean of life forms watched the podium, their attention focused despite size differences, from towering to palm-sized. Each carried scars from the Vulgar tyranny. Regardless of their vast galactic diversity, Commander Ramos stood tall yet humbled before them. His uniform bore the weight of past battles, each metal glinting with his breaths. The dead super-weapon loomed behind as a silent reminder of resilience and victory over evil. This place of Vulgar defeat now hosted the rise of new hope. "Friends," Ramos began, voice firm but also pained. "We stand at a turning point for our worlds and the very fabric of life." He met their gaze. "We've seen unchecked power corrupt, fear twisting compassion. One people thinking survival means enslaving another." He paused, looking to each. "The Vulgar sought to crush us, but instead bound us in blood and sacrifice. Defiance forged our alliance. Now we bond in peace and protection." Agreement rippled through the crowd in murmured translations as heads nodded. Beside Ramos stood the new alliance diplomats, war heroes, and former slaves with badges replacing shackles. Ramos turned to the towering Elloren, her shimmering skin reflecting the light as she bowed. "T-Siri offers advanced shielding," Ramos announced. The bearded Torvik beside her stepped forward, voice thick with feeling. "We share our FTL drive enhancements." Each gift built their new foundation. Not fear, but unity and good. Humanity welcomed these freely given technologies. Once seen as primitive, they now stood as a beacon of hope in this new era. The time had come to write their covenant, the charter binding them together despite differences of language and culture. They painstakingly crafted each phrase to enshrine shared values. Finally, they gathered to sign below the silent superweapon. This grim relic oversaw their solemn vows. Each signature represented entire races dedicating themselves to the Alliance, imprinting their promise of unity. Dr. Emily Carlin swelled with pride as her inventions were embraced. Though of human origin, the charter was galactic in spirit. Here, former victims laid down their oath. Never again would any stand alone against the darkness. Cheers erupted as the last signature was made. The Interstellar Alliance was born on the ashes of their resistance. This place of humanity's desperation now cradled their united future. Ramos smiled, knowing the real work lay ahead, but for now, he reveled in their achievement. The Alliance, exposing the folly of doubting human spirit, heralded a new dawn. With Earth at its heart, humanity would spread its light across the universe. The Vigilant Watch. Peace blanketed the galaxy with its deceptive embrace, but for Commander Ramos, its suffocating hum held a different note. As he stood before the grim gray maps of the war room, power sneered. Jang, consumed with vulgar tech schematics, the legacy of a dark conquering empire, countered, voice thunderous. With power comes duty, not mindless greed. Carlin steadied her glasses, haunted by ghosts of ambition's rot. Their council grappled on, the fate of humanity hanging by gossamer threads. On the surface, golden progress sprang forth through construction and growth. But in the shadows, whispers bred like venom. "Don't trust them," hissed the Vanguard's leader, scarred face twisted in anger. Poison spread, alliances eroded. Chaos took root and flourished in this bitter soil. Ramos clenched his fist on damning reports, pleaded for peace and understanding. But the chasm widened. Some brandished vulgar weapons, drunk on tech, while others sought kinship and discoveries shared. Choices weighed heavy, casting long shadows into unborn generations. The Vanguard's tendrils warmed deeper, but voices like Ramos and Carlin pushed back, fighting to close tears before they splintered forever. Our words today write tomorrow's history. Ramos urged the sea of faces. And so, ideals clashed and tumbled on Earth's restless surface as her nights glittered with promise and peril. Vigilance and vision demanded clear eyes to face the gathering storm. After escaping Gimech's exploding moonbase, Ramos returned to Earth, hailed as a hero. But as a leader, he now grappled with the intricacies of diplomacy rather than combat. Months later, grave news arrived. A renegade Vulgar faction had rebuilt a devastating super weapon from the wreckage. Still haunted by memories of near destruction, Earth mobilized for confrontation. Ramos readied an elite Alliance strike force, handpicked from diverse worlds. He vowed to unify them against this common threat. Their fleet departed, resolve stealing. At the icy Vulgar base, the team stormed through blistering fire, their skills fused in a coordinated advance, embodying Alliance ideals. They pushed through as one, reaching the core. Ramos set the charges himself while his team covered him. The weapon detonated in apocalyptic fury, obliterating the threat. Though tested, the Alliance emerged victorious and united. This triumph cemented the bonds between worlds, scared but resilient. Earth now pioneered this new order, defined by collective strength across the stars.